Hello, I'm Cary Hall, America's Healthcare Advocate. On today's show, we are going to talk with Ron Hoyler. He is an RN with multiple degrees in medicine about GLP-1 drugs. They are not set it and forget it. You want to understand? Listen and learn to America's Healthcare Advocate today. Stay tuned.
And now, America's Healthcare Advocate, Cary Hall.
Hello, America. Welcome to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HI Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com, americashealthcareadvocate.com. You know, we're on 16 podcast channels, our own YouTube channel, and now 252 affiliates across the country. 702,000 people have downloaded these shows. We're pretty excited about that. We want to say thank you to everybody in the audience that's listening. And for those of you out there that are downloading the YouTube and the 16 podcast channels, we thank you again for your interest in the show. So today's topic is going to be GLP-1s. You know, Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, and then the type 2 GLP-1s like Trulicity, Victoza, and Byetta. This is a show that I have wanted to do for a very long time, but I needed an expert. And here he is. Welcome back, Ron Hoyler.
Thanks, Cary.
Very happy to have you here. Ron has done these shows before. He is an RN. He is a diabetes educator at St. Luke's Health System here in Kansas City, where they deliver comprehensive, seamless services integrating clinical self-management aspects of diabetes, cardiometabolic care, and collaborative, comprehensive, in-person centered education that supports behavior change and improves the quality of life for people that have diabetes. I think you're going to find this show to be fascinating because we're going to talk about these GLP-1s. We're going to talk about what they do. We're also going to talk about what you need to do if you're taking GLP-1s, because it's not a set it and forget it. A little bit about Ron. He has a master's of business education and healthcare management. He has a master's of science in nursing, and he has a bachelor of arts personal administration and an associate's applied science nursing. He's got more initials after his name than I can name, okay? So we're very happy to get him here today and very fortunate to have him. Welcome back again. So I've been wanting to do this forever. Before we started, I was up this morning around 4:30, 5 o'clock doing show prep for this thing. And then, so I had this all pretty much laid out for the opening, and then you came in and you told me about the origins of GLP-1s, that they actually were discovered in 1980. So I want you to walk through this with people because they're going to be surprised when they find out what they did to finally get these to work in the gut. Ron?
Yeah, so it's interesting. They had done research where they would give glucose or blood sugar through an IV, and the response of the body was different than if you ate carbohydrates that turned into glucose in your gut. And so they theorized that there must be something going on in the gut that is affecting this. And so in the 1980s, they learned that there's this natural hormone made in the gut called an incretin, and it's a glucose-like peptide, GLP. It's where we get the name from it. And what it does is it tells the pancreas we have a higher level of glucose in our blood. Let's go ahead and tell the pancreas to make more insulin. Insulin helps lower the glucose level, so we're at a healthy level.
All right.
Additionally, it slows down the absorption of those carbohydrates in your gut. And it also sends a message to the liver, because the liver's real eager to try to help out, but we don't always need its help in managing blood sugar levels. So it really was very helpful in helping maintain blood sugar levels. But it also sends a message to the brain that tells your brain to tell your stomach that you're full, that we have a feeling of fullness so that we're not overeating. And this is where we have the probably most significant benefit that people are looking at, and that is when we eat less, we lose weight. But we lose weight and we're not feeling hungry. And that's always been such a problem, is I want to lose weight, but I feel hungry. And this helps that situation.
Okay, but in 1980, this was discovered, and it never became the rage that it is now for diet drugs.
Yeah.
What was the thing that changed the whole equation? Yeah. You're going to love this, people.
Yeah.
That allowed us to create Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, etc. What was the reason for that big change?
Well, so although they had isolated this GLP and were able to make it into a substance that you could take, it would be eaten up and degrade too quickly in the stomach acids. And so it wasn't effective when it was degrading that quickly. And then through some research, they actually found out in a completely different study that there's this venomous lizard in southwest United States called a Gila monster.
Yes, there is.
And it has poisonous saliva.
Right.
And within that saliva is almost the exact same compound of a GLP, only it had an additional compound that delayed its degradation in the stomach. And
so it lasted longer.
Right, so that it would actually be able to be used in the timely method that needed to be done for the biological results of natural GLP that was in.
So now, are we raising Gila monsters somewhere in a facility so we can collect their saliva, or did they figure out how to manufacture the same compound that I mean, this is one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard, and it's fascinating how these two things that were totally separate from one another came together to create the opportunity for GLP-1. So how are they doing? Are they taking saliva from Gila monsters, or did they create their own?
The scientists that discovered that and was able to isolate it, then sold it to pharmaceuticals who were then able to incorporate it into the GLP-1 compound so that it would be able to successfully be used within the body before it degraded in stomach acid.
And then, of course, after the scientists did that, they went up and bought $4 million home in Malibu, sitting on the cliffs watching the ocean. I mean, it's remarkable, frankly, and it's a tribute. And I assume this happened here in the United States, not in Europe.
Well, there were some European studies that contributed to this.
Okay.
It's actually a worldwide, issue that had been researched in the United States. You saw the medications in the early 2000s come out. These GLPs have been around in that since that time frame. And those were some of those earlier medications you had mentioned when you opened up. But they have been refined and improved to some of the medications that you're seeing today that are available that we're going to talk a little bit about.
We're going to close it out here in about a minute, but I want to, when we come back, I mentioned two sets of these medications. I talked about Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, and Zepbound. We come back, we're going to talk about there are ones that are specific to type 2 diabetes. Obviously, Ron is an expert in the treatment of diabetes. We're going to talk about Trulicity, Victoza, Byetta. There's a host of others. I just named those three as an example. And why are they different for people that are type 2 diabetics, and what a difference are they making? And I'm going to tell you why I didn't do this when I was approaching the type 2 diabetes area, and I was pre-diabetic, which I managed to overcome that issue myself through diet, exercise, and some other things. But I want to talk about why this is important. And if you're a type 2 diabetic, what can this mean to you if you get on one of these medications and you do it at a facility that has the kind of knowledge that St. Luke's here in Kansas City has, and practitioners like Ron Hoyler. So we'll be right back from the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. Stay tuned. The doctor's not in the house, but Ron Hoyler is. Did you know that 88% of people in this country who have hearing problems do not wear hearing aids and do not get tested or treated for them? You know what? I was that guy about 5 years ago, and I went to 2 national brands and tried their hearing aids, had no customer service, and was very unhappy. Then I found Focused Hearing and Shannon Schneller, and her folks do a great job. I have hearing aids that work today. I'm wearing them right now. They make all the difference. I can go out to dinner and talk to my friends. I can go to business meetings and understand. And guess what? I don't have to look at closed caption if I want to watch television. It's Focus Hearing, and they can make a difference for you. 913-380-4200, myfocushearing.com. They can make a difference for you just like they did me. Focus Hearing. Call them today. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. In studio with me today, Ron Hoyler. He is a diabetes director at St. Luke's Health System here in Kansas City. He is a nurse, and he is an expert in diabetes. He's also an expert in GLP-1s, which is what we're talking about today. And those are those medications out there that you see advertised all the time on television, like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, and then there's a whole other set that are type 2 diabetes. So, when I was pre-diabetic about a year and a half, 2 years ago. You and I talked about this. And I went to Dr. Bozarth, and she immediately said, well, you can go to one of these meds. And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm going to see if I can do this on my own. And I use metformin, and I take it once a day now. That's all I'm taking. And I've gone from 250 to 227. But I've increased my exercise, and I'm watching the diet. The donuts are only on Saturday after Bible study, okay, and then dessert on Saturday and Sunday typically. But you have to have some responsibility for this, which we're not going to do that right now. We get to the third segment. I just want to make a point. This is not set it and forget it. We're going to talk about that. But before we do that, let's talk about which of these four that I named are for type 2 diabetes and which are just for weight loss, and why are they different, Ron?
The specific medications you mentioned for type 2 diabetes are going to be the Ozempic and the Mounjaro.
Okay.
The other two, the Wegovy and the Zepbound, those are specifically FDA approved for weight loss.
Just weight loss.
Right. It's a very, very similar formula, but the Ozempic and the Mounjaro that they had started giving to people with diabetes had such significant weight loss. There were a lot of people that said, hey, sign me up for that weight loss drug, right?
Oh, we like our instant gratification in the United States of America.
Yes, we do. But that was FDA approved for diabetes. So they had to make a few alterations in it and then resubmit it for FDA approval to be used as a weight loss
So it can be used in two different settings. Basically, if you're just overweight and you're not a type 2 diabetic or approaching type 2 diabetes, you can take one of the meds. But if you are a type 2 diabetic, let's talk about that for a minute. Mm-hmm. Why is it important for type 2 diabetics to think about one of these medications, and what difference does it make in their lives, and why do they want to not become a full-blown type 2 diabetic? Okay. Why are those things important?
First of all, nobody wants to have diabetes, right?
I certainly hope not.
It wasn't on my wish list.
No, I was terrified of becoming a type 2 diabetic, right. And I was determined to turn it around myself, which I did. Right. But that's not everybody's cup of tea.
Sure. And let's remember, type 1 and type 2 are two different types of diabetes. Different. Type 1, our body no longer can produce insulin.
Right.
Type 2, our body produces insulin, but it doesn't work as hard as it should. It doesn't work efficiently. We know that several things can contribute to how efficiently our insulin is working. For instance, if we're overweight, our insulin our body makes doesn't work as well. We know that if we are not very active, it will make the insulin not work as well.
So if you're sedentary.
Exactly. And so if this sounds similar, it's because exercise and diet are often the solution to many of our healthcare situations.
Which people don't necessarily want to hear.
Well, you're right about that. We're looking for that magic pill, right? In this case, it's mostly going to be a magic injection, right? That we take once a week, although there is now a pill.
I saw
a GLP-1 pill.
Yeah, advertised.
But primarily it's been an injection you take once a week. And I like the way you worded it. People want to set it and forget it, right? Yeah. And that's kind of easy to do when we're talking about a quick little shot once a week, and then we don't think about it, right? And we see our appetite, go down.
I'm losing weight. Gee, things are great.
And now I look better. I feel better. My blood sugar's better. Yeah. And what else should I have to do? Oh, nothing. This medication's going to take care of it.
Take care of everything.
Yeah, not true. If you still continue to eat your fat, greasy foods, you're going to be sick to your stomach.
Okay? Really?
That is still the same effect you're going to have. It'll be enhanced by the GLP-1.
So if you're wolfing down that Big Mac,
right?
Okay, or going to Five Guys and getting that double cheeseburger with all the goodies,
right?
Okay, yes, I do like those, and every once in a while I do it. So, but you're going to pay a price if you're on one of these meds.
Yeah,
your stomach is going to say, we don't like this.
Right. You don't.
Wow.
I tell patients you don't get to still eat like a pig and look like a swan.
Well, there's one I haven't heard before. I like that a lot.
right? This is a wonderful medication to assist, being the key word, assist.
That's interesting.
You in becoming healthier, but you have the obligation and responsibility of looking at more appropriate foods and including, and this becomes significantly important, including exercise.
We're going to talk about this in the next segment. I'm holding off on this because I'm going to get into the weeds on it in the next segment. Question, how long can you do this? I mean, okay, I take the med, I've dropped the weight, I'm down 25 pounds because I'm on the med, and I've been doing it for a year. Mm-hmm. Are you going to keep doing this the rest of your life? And then this begs a question to me personally. This is one of the reasons I didn't take this med. There are not a lot of long-term studies out there about what side effects or long-term issues you may have if you're taking these. So where is that at, Ron? Where is that being addressed, or is it even being addressed?
Yeah, well, great question. And here's what's so interesting about that. As I said, this has been around since the early 2000s. So we're coming up on almost 20 years of research data. And while we have not seen anything negative per se for long-term use, we have during that time found multiple benefits in addition to your blood sugar.
Okay.
That these
and so, what are some of those benefits?
Well, specifically, Ozempic has been able through the research to show that it is cardioprotective and that it can help with the heart. It also helps preserve kidney function as well.
Really?
There's some suggestions that it is also has neuroprotective features. So it's some exciting information, a happy, coincidence that something that was helping so much with blood sugar turned out to have benefits in other areas.
That's remarkable. It's also very reassuring because I was not aware that for 20 years they've actually been doing studies on these. So basically what that's telling me is this is really safe. There's really not much here to be. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. All right, come on. Let's finish.
Safe is a very subjective word. Anytime we're putting chemicals, drugs, pharmaceuticals in our body, there's always the off chance that you will have side effects, or there could be some people who have some sort of a reaction that is negative. But for the most part, what we see are positives from this medication. And that can be related to, for instance, if you don't take this medicine correctly, if you start off on too high of a dose, you're going to have some diarrhea. You're going to have some GI issues. It must be started at a low level so that your body acclimates, and then you will step up on a scheduled basis.
Okay, so that means that these commercials seeing on television where they're telling you or on the radio, we can just ship you this med, I would strongly suggest that you probably not do that because you just heard you need to understand how to do this, and you probably need to be talking to your practitioner before you even think about it. Ron's nodding his head yes. So I'm hoping you're all listening to this, and I know how we work in this country. If I can just order it off online, I don't have to go through a doctor. I'll just get it myself. Well, you might want to think about what the side effects of that might be when you start doing those injections. When we come back from the break, now we're going to talk about what is your responsibility if you're on these meds. What do you have to do? Do you lose muscle mass? Do you lose other parts of your body that are starting to have problems because you're depending on this med, you're putting this foreign substance in your body? We're going to talk about that. Stay right there. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HI Radio Network. We want to welcome 2 new affiliates that have just come on board. It is remarkable. We're up to 252 stations. 1450 WMOH AM in Cincinnati, Ohio. Very happy to be on the air there. Welcome aboard to be part of the HIA Radio Network and America's Healthcare Advocate. And WRNR AM and FM 106.5. Martinsburg, West Virginia. Want to welcome you as well to the show and as part of our family here on America's Healthcare Advocate. My producers, Mr. Dave Thies and Garner Cowdery, always doing an excellent job of getting this show out there on the air and then also up on all of our podcast and YouTube platforms. So let's go back to this, because this is the part that, to me is fascinating. We have a tendency in this country to think, I can take the med, I'm fine, I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And I call it set it and forget it. Probably not a good idea, because I'm looking at how many pages here that you sent me. I think there's like 8 or 9 pages here of what our responsibility, your responsibility is if I don't take the med. But if you do take the med, what are your priorities? And so there's a whole list in here about what you should eat, protein-rich foods, all the rest of it. You talked about not continuing to eat stuff that you shouldn't. And then there's an exercise program.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to hear about the exercise part. Mm-hmm. So why are these components important? I'm looking at this like protein, preserve weight loss, preserve lean mass and strength during weight loss, smaller meals, hydration, fiber gradually, strength training, aerobic activity. Those are the priorities listed here. And this is the GLP Nutrition Exercise Starter Guide. Mm-hmm. Talk about this first part, Ron.
As we mentioned before, a lot of people want to just take this drug and not have to think anything else about it. It's especially concerning because the commercials now we're seeing have a lot of professional athletes that are coming on saying they're taking it. What's so very important to be aware of with these medications is that there are several things you must be aware of and do for these medications to be successful. One of those things is understanding this. GLPs, although you're going to lose weight, do not target just fat.
Oh.
When you're losing weight, you are losing muscle as well. And so you must be diligent at working towards maintaining and even increasing muscle, particularly because that's a problem for all of us, whether we're on a GLP as we age.
Well, I was going to say, for those of us that are chronologically challenged, seasoned citizens, I have changed my regimen and added a whole new series of exercise on the Pilates and free weights because that's an issue.
Yeah,
and it becomes more of an issue as you age. You're continuing to lose muscle mass.
Right.
And if you don't do something to stop it,
right.
Then, yeah. But
so,
this accelerates that.
Right.
Because I'm going to go back. He just said that they don't just get rid of fat. The GLP-1s also get rid of muscle mass. So how do you counteract that?
Well, so you must intentionally increase your protein take.
Okay.
And here's the trick. Remember we talked about how GLP-1s decrease your appetite.
Oh boy. Now we have opposites.
Right.
Okay.
I'm asking you to increase your protein intake if you're going to successfully utilize a GLP, which is decreasing your appetite. So we have to be very intentional then about what we're going to eat. And this is partly why we talked about you have to get away from that fatty, greasy burger or pizza that you were having so frequently, and you must focus on a protein-rich diet to preserve the muscle, but you not only preserve it, you've got to build it and maintain it, and that's going to require including resistance training.
How much protein does an average person need on a daily basis? I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to say it until you do.
Well, it's going to depend on if you're a man or a woman.
Right.
And as we age, going back to what you were talking,
right.
we're naturally losing muscle. It's called sarcopenia. We need to be increasing our protein to begin with, even if we're not on a GLP. It becomes multiplied for the protein intake that you need if you're going to take a GLP. Depending on man or woman and what your physical size is, you may need to be trying to get anywhere between 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal.
So 90 grams a day if you eat 3 times a day, which is the number that I've been very cognizant of just personally.
Right.
So in the morning, I'm taking a protein shake and maybe I'm eating Greek yogurt together.
Yeah,
and I've got at least 30 grams of protein by the time. Because the Fairlife and a number of these other products that are out there, I make up a shake with that. My wife does actually. Lori does it with a fruit, usually a banana or something. And then and she so I'm looking at least 30 grams of protein for breakfast.
But you're also getting your carbs there.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. So, but this is really important. People need to understand you can't just set it and forget it. So there's a list here.
Sure.
I'm going to go through some of these. Greek yogurt, which is actually really good if you put a little honey in it. It's pretty good stuff. And I'm not a big yogurt fan. Cottage cheese, another one. The eggs are great. You make up hard-boiled eggs, and you have a hard-boiled egg in the morning. You're getting 12 grams of protein right out of that one egg. Chicken, turkey breast, fish and seafood, lean pork.
Just 3 ounces of those pieces of meat.
That's all there is to it.
Not a big giant portion.
Yeah, so you can have a small fillet for dinner, and you're getting a significant amount of protein.
Correct.
Then it talks about things like lentils, tofu, which I'm not a big fan of any of this stuff. I know. It does say protein shake, so I'm good there. And then nuts and butter and cheese, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, there are certain foods that are going to have a combination of several of the things we need, right? They'll have both, for instance, peanut butter has carbs and protein, right?
Yeah.
So some of those things are going to help you get your daily allowance of more than just one thing that you need.
So here's what I'm going to do. There's a really wonderful guide here that Ron in St. Luke's has put together for this, and I'm going to post this up on the website and on the podcast page. So you can you're going to be able to go up there. Dave's just loving this. Because he has to do it. You're going to be able to go up there and download this thing so yourself. So there's another part of this I want to get to now, and it's called exercise. So here we go. Monday. This doesn't mean you have to run a marathon. This is really pretty easy stuff.
It really is.
All right. So on Monday it says 10 to 20 minute walk. Okay. Every day I go out and do a walk with Twigs in the morning, the corgi I have, and we do a half mile up and a half mile back. So that every day I'm doing that walk. It's the first thing I do in the morning after I get everything set up and ready to go. Then Tuesday it says strength, chair squats, push-ups, hand rows.
Those are different things you can choose from.
Right.
You don't have to do all those.
Okay. And a 10 or 20 minute walk again on Wednesday. That's pretty easy. Or cycling if you like to cycle. Then Thursday, and this is interesting, mobility, balance, head to toe walking. Now, for you seasoned citizens out there like me, that is a huge deal. One of the reasons I do Pilates is Pilates focuses on balance and agility. And that's the reason I've been doing it for, 12, 13 years, whatever it is. How is that important and why is that important? The first thing they ask you, when you go to see a doctor and you're a seasoned citizen is, how many falls have you had? Did you fall in your house today? And you're like, you're really annoying me. But why is that? This is an issue.
Right. Well, it stems back because these are all interrelated, right?
Yeah.
People will think, gosh, if I lose some weight, I'll have better balance. I'm not as heavy, right?
Okay.
The truth of the matter is that may be true to some extent, but our balance is really going to be achieved by keeping our core strengthened.
And that's what Pilates does.
And so when we don't have those core muscles strengthened, we will have worse balance. Those core muscles get weak when we're on a GLP.
Because it's taking away muscle mass, which we talked about earlier.
And so if we're not getting in our protein, and if we're not getting some kind of resistance training to keep the core muscles stable, we add in an extra potential detriment, which is poor balance. It's the last thing what do you call them? The seniored citizens?
Chronologically challenged, seasoned citizens. Okay. I stole that from Rush Limbaugh, by the way.
Okay.
He coined that phrase. It was really quite good. We are well seasoned.
So, but these are the things you probably don't hear about from the doctor in those 10, 15 minutes visit time that you have. Additionally, we haven't even brought in about the hydration and the increase in fiber that's needed.
Yeah.
Right?
When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about strength training, hydration, and increased fiber. You getting the picture here? There's more to this than set it and forget it. If you order, now you can do these things on television where you can actually order the medication on television. I guess they do it over the phone. I don't know, to give you a prescription, do it. I'm going to tell you that's probably not a good idea. If you're a type 2 diabetic, you're approaching type 2 diabetes, please go see your practitioner, someone like Ron Hoyler, who's going to walk you through. These are all pieces of why this is important. Look, you can improve your life a lot, with these medications, but it has to be done in a way that's not detrimental in the long term, and that's why we do these kind of shows. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. In studio with me, Ron Hoyler. Topic is GLP-1s. that Ozempic and Wegovy you're taking, are they the right thing for you? What are your responsibilities? What do you need to do if you're taking that medication so that you can enjoy the lifestyle it's going to help you have, but at the same time, not have issues like declining muscle mass and all the rest of it? That's what we're talking about. So let's get back to this, and then we're going to talk about because it's now approved for Medicare, the GLP-1 Bridge program. We'll talk about that. The strength training and how people, in fact, I was just reading about an actress. She's the one that does the Lioness series, who talked about she never thought strength training was important. Now she's doing strength training and weights. And I've been doing this for 50 years, okay, and never walked away from it. Why is that important? Why when people, there's always like, I don't want to be one of those guys lifting barbells and all that stuff. Look, you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let me just make it clear to you. Okay. But why is that important? Why, especially given the effects of GLP-1 on muscle mass?
Sure. You consider the culture we live in right now, which we've got 1,000 channels on TV. We can watch anything. We can binge watch for days if we wanted to.
Yes, you can.
Without ever getting off the couch.
That's right.
Because
you can't watch Yellowstone for a whole week if you really need to.
Right. I could call Uber Eats, never have to get off the couch to make something.
Yeah.
Right. We're more sedentary. We're taking in more calories and carbohydrates and fat. Those are the wrong combination to lead us to a healthier life. But that is the way the culture works right now. So to offset that, a lot of people, I think, have the mindset, I'll just take this GLP.
Right.
And not change anything else.
Right.
That's not going to work.
No.
Right. However, I fully realize that I am guilty of enjoying a few programs on TV, and I don't want to feel guilty about it. So one of the things I teach my patients, because as we've discussed, the resistance training is so important. Like you said, you don't have to go join a gym and lift weights, but there are simple things you can do. One of the things my wife and I do is called commercial exercising. And when we want to sit down and watch a show without feeling guilty, when a commercial comes on or a break, stand up and we will do knee touches where you
This is hilarious. I never even thought of this.
And what you're doing is you're building those important core muscles we talked about, right? It's not going to do the big biceps, but it's getting those balance muscles that we need, the core muscles, the stomach, the legs, the butt. And it's a way that you get to enjoy your show without feeling guilty, but you're getting some of that resistance training in.
And if you are eating dessert with ice cream, it probably won't melt in between the commercials, just in case that's on your mind. You're thinking about this. I'm thinking of myself. That's interesting. So that's an interesting little inventive exercise program you can do.
Yeah.
But the key is you've got to get off your butt and you've got to do something, or you're going to have other issues in the long term. Because my concern initially was, God, if I take this for a year, then what happens at the end of the year? Well, here's the answer right here. You can take these for long periods of time, but you have to do it the right way.
Sure.
Or you're going to pay a price.
Quite honestly, if you wanted to stop these after some period of time, if you have made these lifestyle changes where you're eating better and actually doing some exercise,
you can get off these meds.
You can get off of these.
We have a group we work with called Twin Health, and we've done we've done a radio show with them. Phenomenal. We haven't aired it yet. We probably will, but they're one of the companies, and what they do is they teach people how to get off of the medications completely and manage their type 2 diabetes. So there's definitely a path forward on that. All right, let's switch gears because this is interesting. It's approved by Medicare now. That was a big deal. Okay, GLP-1 Bridge Program Guide. Talk about this because you brought it with you. I'm going to post this up on the website so you'll all see it. But let's talk about what this is.
So in response to how significant of benefits there are with GLPs, Medicare has a program called a Bridge Program where they select a few drugs each year and they make them all at a $50 cost, or a cost that's significantly more affordable.
It's a lot less than $1,000 a prescription, which is what they were when they first came out.
Before everybody rushes out to try to get that, there are some
protocols.
Number one, this Bridge program for GLPs is specifically only for the weight loss versions of the GLPs.
Oh, how interesting.
So we're talking Zepbound and Wegovy.
Okay.
The Ozempic and the Mounjaro are designed for people with diabetes. That is not part of this bridge program.
But they're already in place if you meet the protocol?
Yes,
Okay.
for Medicare.
Right.
Yes.
So you can either get it for just weight loss or if you have type 2.
Right.
But so how does this work?
You do have to meet certain requirements regarding your body mass index and comorbidities.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So if you are a certain body mass index, in other words, if you're very overweight,
Correct.
I believe it's over 35 BMI, you qualify.
That's it.
But if you're between 30 and 34 on the BMI body mass index, you also need to have another comorbidity or condition that you are not being successful with, such as hypertension that isn't being treated well.
So how I'm really confused because how is it these companies are advertising this stuff nonstop on television? Mm-hmm. You can order direct. Where is all of this?
Well,
I mean, who's responsible? Okay, first of all, there is I'm sure they've got this figured out in terms of the bridge program, because I know that, from you're seeing me wear the Centego Health shirt, that's the third party administrator, of which I am one of the owners. We're getting hammered with these GLP-1 drugs, people signing up for them, doing it. It's part of what we do. We're paying the claims. But my point is, where is all of this interconnectivity when people are watching these ads on television? They pick up the phone, they're going to call somebody, and they're going to ship it to your door.
Well, they won't just ship it just like that.
Okay.
There's going to be some things that they have to.
Okay, so they have to meet certain standards. So they just can't send that stuff out the door.
Right. That is a controlled substance, so to speak, that does require intervention by a provider.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction here that if you are someone's considering doing this, or if you're type 2 diabetes, it'd probably be a really smart thing to go to a practitioner and have a conversation before you jump into this stuff. Am I right or wrong, Ron?
I would 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Okay, and don't listen to, the movie stars on television and the other athletes telling you, yeah, it's great. It is if it's done properly, which is why we did this show today. It's important to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how this can make a big difference in your lifestyle. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to understand what happens if you do it and why you need to do it, and have some sense of understanding about what you're getting into, right?
Absolutely correct.
Once again, thank you so much. It's always great when you come on and do these shows. These are great educational pieces. This is why we do what we do. When I say separate fact from fiction, that's what we just did today on America's Healthcare Advocate. And now I leave you with this thought from Albert Einstein. The one who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been. Remember, friends, it's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the very best, you most often get it. Thank you for listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA. Goodbye, America.